Back in 1978, there was this pilot named Barry who got boarded during a flight. Seeing that his coworker had dozed off, Barry decided to switch off the autopilot and give the plane a gentle shake, causing all the passengers to wake up. In a swift move, he adjusts the plane back to normal and casually dismisses the incident as mere turbulence. As soon as Barry walks through the door after a long day at work, his wife Lucy greets him with a mischievous smile and some playful outfits, ready to have some fun. However, before they can even start, Barry is so exhausted that he drifts off to sleep right away. Once upon a time, as Barry was taking a breather at a bar during a layover, along came Monty, who happened to be privy to Barry's hidden truth. So here's the thing, he's actually been sneaking in cigars on the sly to earn some extra cash. Meet Monty, a CIA agent intrigued by Barry's captivating profile, filled with numerous significant accomplishments. Well, he's looking to Barry for assistance in serving the nation. The agent leads Barry to a hidden hangar, revealing an incredibly speedy aircraft that Barry could pilot if he accepts the position. Barry was assigned missions to conduct reconnaissance in Central America, but he was forbidden from sharing any details, not even with his own wife. Barry isn't a fan of hiding things from Lucy, but he reluctantly agrees to go along with it. Next up, Monty decides to give Barry a chance to fly the plane, watching in awe as he effortlessly performs some breathtaking stunts with perfect precision. Barry is enjoying the thrill of soaring through the sky, a feeling he hasn't experienced in a long time. When they got back home, Barry sat Lucy down and broke the news that he was saying goodbye to his job at the commercial airline to start working for a private company called Independent Aviation Consultants, the same one Monty had mentioned earlier as a possible opportunity. A heated debate erupts as Lucy expresses her concern that it might be a scam and has about to make a major error. As Barry pondered her words, he found himself on his next commercial flight, feeling restless and uninterested. Without saying a word, he quickly grew bored and exited the plane. Later on, Barry decides to leave his typical job and begins taking on missions from Monty. Thanks to the tension of the Cold War, the Soviets are supporting communist rebels in Central America, and the CIA is eager to capture images of their operations. Barry, the skilled pilot for the CIA, soars above numerous countries, skillfully lowering the plane to capture highly detailed photographs. It's a common occurrence for the insurgents to start shooting at him, but he's an incredible pilot who manages to evade without any harm every time. The risk is high, yet he can't help but feel thrilled about his fresh job opportunity. Monty's photos are absolutely fantastic, earning him constant praise at the office for his impressive insights. Once out of nowhere, a bullet strikes the plane, causing Barry to nearly lose control. With quick thinking, he adjusts the controls and manages to safely navigate the situation, avoiding a potential disaster. Barry's new job allows him to spend more time at home, bringing joy to Lucy's life. In the end, they even end up having children of their own. Surprisingly, Barry has yet to inform his family about his new job, continuing to wear his previous work attire whenever he visits them. Yet another issue we have is that Barry is not receiving adequate compensation for his work. Monty never fails to shower Barry with compliments, which prompts Barry to muster up the courage to ask for a well-deserved raise. However, Monty insists that he must be patient. A little while after that, Barry is assigned a fresh task, one that he dubs Bagman. He needs to make a quick pit stop in Panama to swap packages with Colonel Noriega, who's been passing information to the CIA. Once upon a time, Barry found himself in Colombia, stopping to refuel his plane. Out of nowhere, a group of men appeared, encircling him before whisking him away in their vehicle. In a blink of an eye, Barry finds himself seated in the office of the renowned narratist Pablo Escobar, who sees right through Barry's facade as a businessman. So, Pablo decides to show Barry around his plantation, right? And then he goes ahead and makes him an offer. A ton of cash in exchange for smuggling their illegal powder. Cool, huh? Barry was intrigued by the concept, but his attention was quickly drawn to a sight in the trees, a plane that had clearly crashed. So, as it happens, the runway on the plantation isn't quite long enough, and sadly, this led to the tragic loss of a number of pilots. But Pablo, he's not about to make it any bigger. He knows the army would spot it right away. So he looks Barry straight in the eye and says, "If you can't handle it, then maybe it's time for you to go." Barry sees this as a challenge to his abilities and decides to take the job just as it is. After that, Pablo informs Barry that they need to make a stop in Miami to drop off the items. Barry believes it's way too risky, and suggests we release the cargo over Louisiana through a unique hatch on the aircraft. The dealers will need to make sure they're present to collect it. He shows the employees the proper way to wrap the packages for safety during transport, and has to remind them not to exceed the weight limit when loading the plane. Perhaps there's still space for him, but if he carries too heavy a load, he won't be able to take off. As Barry pushes the plane to the end of the runway, he discovers a man sitting in the cockpit. The workers are urging him to bring a guard along for the product, but Barry declines, needing to reiterate the weight concern once more. As he's getting ready to go, someone hands him a cross for protection, which he then hangs on the dashboard before driving off. Pablo and his crew decide to make a wager on whether Barry will make it through the ordeal. The airplane grumbles under the heavy load as it fights through the dense forest for a few miles, but in the end, it manages to soar into the sky with ease, and Barry plants a kiss on the cross. Over in American skies, the military radar detects the aircraft. But Barry was ready for this, and quickly zooms around the oil platforms. Well, according to the military, he's considered one of the helicopters owned by the company. As soon as he arrives in Louisiana, Barry switches the plane to autopilot, opens the hatch, and releases the packages for the waiting men below. Afterwards, Barry joins Pablo in jubilation as he hands over a bag full of cash and eagerly talks about their next delivery. Suddenly, a group of soldiers encircle the house and begin shooting, causing Barry to panic. But Pablo and the other guys reassure him and exit the room, telling him not to fret. Barry was feeling lost and uncertain about what to do next, when his anxiety spiked upon spotting a police helicopter overhead. As he snatches up his bundle of cash, he attempts to flee, but is met with a chaotic gun battle unfolding in the hallways. Pablo's group found themselves surrounded in the lobby as one of the soldiers took him into custody. After a couple of days, Pablo and his buddies are set free, but poor Barry remains behind bars with a missing tooth. Suddenly, Monty shows up at his door with a grave expression. He reveals that the police are aware of his smuggling activities and will be conducting a search of his house the following day. Barry is concerned about the safety of his family and decides to seek assistance from Monty. Sure, the agent is willing to assist Barry. However, in exchange, Barry must transport weapons to rebels in Nicaragua because the newly elected president has a strategy for the ongoing war. Barry, feeling desperate, finds himself with no other option but to accept the deal. In just a few moments, Barry found himself released from jail, but unfortunately, Monty was unable to make the search order vanish. In order to keep his family safe, Barry has the option to relocate to a secure location set up by the CIA in the state of Arkansas. At 4 in the morning, Barry finally made it back home. He then roused his family from their slumber, urging them to quickly gather their belongings. Lucy finds herself in a state of confusion and seeks clarification, only to have Barry reassure her by simply requesting her trust. In a swift motion, they gather up their belongings and make a quick exit from the house, just before the police show up. Down in Arkansas, the family was less than thrilled to stumble upon a dull little town that seemed to be nearly deserted. Deep in the heart of the forest stands a house that is in dire need of many repairs. As Monty patiently waits in the forest, Barry abruptly departs without a word, causing Lucy to become increasingly wary. As they arrive at the private airport, Monty discloses that all the land stretching from the house to this spot is now owned by Barry. Next, Monty reveals the weapons that must be delivered and points out the locations on a map to steer clear of the military bases. The space for flying will be limited, making it quite risky. But Barry, filled with excitement at the prospect of having his very own airport, quickly spots the bag of cash awaiting him, which only adds to his joy as he eagerly accepts the job. As soon as Barry walks through the door, Lucy pounces on him in a fit of anger, leaving him with no option but to come clean about everything. He empties his pockets of cash, reassuring her that she has enough to buy whatever she needs to support their family. Yet she remains anxious. Back in 1981, Barry completed his very first delivery. Yet, the people who live here have no desire for firearms. What they do is swipe his fancy attire and shades instead. As soon as he gives Monty a ring to express his frustration, Monty quickly points out that it's essential for Barry to make sure the goods are delivered to the correct location at the specified time. So, it seems that Barry isn't actually delivering anything to the soldiers after all. He is determined to rally ordinary citizens to join the fight. Next up on his journey, Barry grabs a bat for protection and starts off by presenting some more enticing gifts, such as risque magazines and booze. Suddenly, Pablo and his crew stumble upon him and ask for his help with another smuggling job. Now that Barry possesses the CIA's control map, he is more than willing to take it. Barry embarks on a series of deliveries with a straightforward strategy in mind. After grabbing the guns in Arkansas, he skillfully dodges every law enforcement officer, all thanks to the trusty map, and eventually arrives at Pablo's headquarters. The Colombians hold on to the majority of the firearms and pack the plane full of their goods, which Barry then transports to the training camp. Over there, they load the powdered product onto boats that will transport it to Miami. Barry makes sure to grab his bags of powder before heading to the state, following a quick fuel stop in Panama, where he knows he's safe under Noriega's watchful eye. And the colonel also received some joyful powder as part of his payment. As soon as Barry arrived back in Louisiana, he quickly disposed of the remaining bags in the swamps, knowing the dealers would come to retrieve them. Barry's side hustle takes off, bringing in a hefty income, leading to the expansion of his business and the hiring of additional staff. These guys here, they're no strangers to shady dealings. Barry calls them his snowbirds. Each of them chooses to fly alone in order to maximize their profits. One sunny afternoon, Monty excitedly goes up to Barry with some incredible news. The American government is leaking to bring the rebels to Barry's property for training. Before long, Barry's fleet of planes starts transporting people over, and the rebels are thrilled to escape their rundown neighborhoods, lured by the false hope of the American dream. Whenever Barry arrives in Latin America, a crowd of locals quickly gathers around him, pleading for the chance to accompany him on his journey. Before long, a complete training facility is established in Arkansas, where the young men receive instruction in handling firearms. As Barry snapped photos, he kept up with supplying guns and powder. There are a few folks around here who are beginning to feel a bit wary, but Barry's got his hands full with all sorts of projects that are keeping everyone smiling, so they're happy to turn a blind eye. In 1982, Barry splurged on a shiny new car and completely transformed his entire house. However, despite his overflowing wealth, he is limited in how much he can safely deposit in the bank without arousing suspicion about his illicit activities. In order to address the issue, he establishes several businesses in the community and invents playful positions for the residents. In the end, he goes as far as purchasing brand new airplanes for his airport. Lucy is really enjoying the luxurious lifestyle they have now, so she begins accompanying Barry to the extravagant parties hosted by Pablo. Once, under the cover of night, the couple found themselves covered in grime as Barry skillfully navigated the skies in his airplane. The cash just keeps flowing in, and it's beginning to accumulate all over the place in the house. Well, Barry's idea was to hide it by burying it in the backyard. Once upon a time, Lucy's brother JB paid a visit to the family, revealing that he was currently without a job. And then Barry gives him the opportunity to work as the janitor at the airport. At this point, the cash just keeps stacking higher, and there's no space left in the backyard. Accidentally, the dog uncovers a bag, leading JB to also discover several bags. But as soon as Barry swung open the barn door, a heap of money bags came tumbling down right onto him. In the end, he accidentally drops the money into the barn, right in the middle of the horse's hay. Later that day, JB pulls into the driveway with a shiny new car, accompanied by a girlfriend who looks much younger than him. Right away, Lucy whisks the girl off, while Barry gives JB a good talking to about his careless spending habits. Back in 1983, Barry's team was exhausted from a full day of hard work. As the night fell, their lack of caution on the journey back home led to the government's radars picking up the planes at last. As the team races ahead, they notice the army jets tailing closely behind. Barry realizes that there's no way they can outpace them, given the jet's superior speed and technology. Rather than continue, he instructs his team to ease up and fly in circles above the ocean until morning. In the end, the jets exhaust their fuel supply and are left with no option but to head back. After a while, the FBI catches wind of a small Arkansas town that seems to be generating an excessive amount of money. A visitor arrives at the location and immediately realizes the abundance of banks as well as the extravagant luxury cars lining the streets. At the same time, the Border Patrol discovers Barry's airplanes and dispatches their own in response. After their previous experience, they decided to send regular planes that could match Barry's models. With no way to shake them off, Barry makes a split-second decision to veer sharply and ends up right in the middle of a bustling street. So there's this car, right? And it's cruising along when suddenly it veers off the road to dodge a crash. And then, the plane in its path ends up knocking over a bunch of signs as it keeps on moving. The car ended up careening into a row of trees and then crashing into someone's backyard before coming to a halt. Immediately, Barry seizes his sack of money, generously leaves some cash for the locals, and swiftly hops on a child's bike to make his getaway. Meanwhile, Pablo decides to go to war against the government, resulting in his group being expelled from Colombia. And then they decide to make Nicaragua their home. Without wasting a moment, Barry rushes off to meet him, giving JB the perfect opportunity to snatch a bag of cash before heading into town. As soon as the sheriff spots him, he wastes no time in sprinting after the culprit to apprehend him right there on the street. Before long, the FBI agent is on their trail. Lucy gives Barry a call to alert him, but he's stuck until he wraps up a fresh agreement with Pablo. That's shaping up to be even riskier. As soon as he arrives home, Barry picks up the phone and gives JB a call at the jail, urging him to stay quiet as he assures him that he will handle everything. Next, Barry gives Pablo a call and informs him that he needs to temporarily halt operations until he resolves the matter with JB. However, Pablo assures everyone that he will figure it out. After a couple of hours, JB walks out of the jail cell, finally free. Barry leads him to the center of the street, handing over a stack of cash and a passport, urging him to vanish from his life. An enraged JB shouts at Barry, hurling insults at Lucy as he climbs into his vehicle. As Barry rushes to Lucy's defense, his heart stops when he witnesses the car bursting into flames. Well, it's clear that poor JB has passed away, leaving Barry with no choice but to shove the wreckage into the woods to cover up the whole incident. A little while after that, Monty gets in trouble with his bosses when it turns out that half of the weapons that were supposed to go to Nicaragua actually ended up in the hands of traffickers instead of the rebels. Monty decides to pay Barry a visit in order to call off the entire mission and send all the rebels back home. He instructs Barry to hold off for another call, but it's obvious that the CIA has cut ties with him. As soon as Monty walks back into the office, he commands his team to destroy all papers connected to Barry by setting them on fire. Meanwhile, Barry instructs the snowbirds to grab their belongings and flee, leaving them puzzled about what to do with the numerous guns in their possession. As darkness fell, the airport found itself encircled by a multitude of law enforcement agencies, ranging from the FBI to the federal police. Barry found himself in handcuffs, requesting his one phone call. But when he dialed Pablo's number, he was met with the frustrating message that it was invalid. Barry finds himself surrounded by a group of officers as he engages in conversation with the prosecutor. Suddenly, the prosecutor's speech is cut short by a phone call from the governor. The officers couldn't believe their eyes as the prosecutor declared that Barry was now free to leave. The moment Barry walks out the door, a group of men in sharp suits swoop in and whisk him away to the White House. He joins a meeting with key military figures who are determined to show that Latin America is responsible for the trafficking operations and to apprehend Pablo. Barry is being asked to continue smuggling for Pablo while also secretly working as a double agent to gather the evidence that is necessary. It's clear that Barry is definitely accepting the job. Back in 1984, Barry was gifted a brand new plane by the government, who also revealed the secret locations of all the hidden cameras to him. His only task is to capture images. Barry's feeling anxious about those cameras being too obvious, but he knows he can't bail out now, because it's either that or end up behind bars. Barry and a snowbird took off on their brand new plane, braving a turbulent storm to reach Nicaragua. The moment they touch down, a group of furious soldiers swarm around them, forcing the pair to kneel down. Before long, Pablo's right-hand man shows up and instructs his crew to open fire on the gringos, but then bursts into laughter. So, as it happens, it was all just a prank. Afterwards, Barry goes to see how Pablo is doing. The atmosphere is a bit uneasy at first, but Barry manages to reassure Pablo that their friendship is still intact. The delivery goes on just like every other time, and they are able to capture all the necessary photos. After some time passes, a televised government announcement is made declaring victory in the war against smugglers. When they displayed the photos on the screen as evidence, Lucy grew irate upon noticing that Barry's face remained unblurred. Just as Pablo and his crew were working hard, they found out about Barry's deceit. Barry gives a ring to a government official seeking assistance. The official expresses regret for mistakenly sharing the photos, but also points out that Barry was aware of the potential consequences. On that particular day, Barry gathers his family for one last meal together. He advises Lucy to wear all her fancy jewelry before the authorities show up, ensuring they can't confiscate it from her. Before long, the entire house was swarming with agents, seizing every last bit of money and valuables. As Barry looks on, he instructs Lucy to take the children and leave, ensuring their safety in his absence. Lucy adamantly declines and begins removing all of her jewelry. With desperation in his voice, Barry soothes her nerves and gently reminds her that he will be locked up for quite some time. Reluctantly, she finally agrees to escape with him. As Lucy makes the decision to relocate to her childhood town with the children, Barry finds himself facing a trial. The prosecutor attempts to take him down, but the judge ultimately orders him to complete 1,000 hours of community service. As the prosecutor keeps on protesting, Barry just saunters off. Aware that Pablo is after him, Barry decides to switch motels every night for safety. As he goes along, he captures a series of videos sharing his entire journey. Whenever he turns the key in the ignition, he always makes sure to politely request those nearby to take a few steps back. It's not that he's paranoid, but he just can't shake off the fear that his car might burst into flames at any moment. Every evening, he is required to report to a Salvation Army facility for his community service duties. Late one evening, as he pulls into a parking spot, a group of unknown figures suddenly encircle him before fatally shooting him in the head. Early in the morning, the authorities discover the body, only for the FBI to step in and lead the investigation in order to conceal the truth. So, there was this snowbird who got arrested, but you know what? He turned it all around and ended up becoming a pastor out in rural Alabama. We have no idea where the snowbirds are. After suggesting that the Iranians supply arms to Latin America, Monty lands a promotion from his bosses. Barry's planes are still being utilized by the CIA to supply arms to the rebels, yet their struggle with the weight causes a snag, resulting in the operation being abruptly halted after they are shot down. Lucy is employed at a quick service restaurant, yet she does still possess a few pieces of the fancy jewelry. So there's this true tale that actually happened, and it's the very event that set off the whole Iran-Contra scandal. It was on a February day in 1986 that the true